Right. Here we are. Welcome in, ladies. Welcome in. Tonight, we are chatting about something that most women struggle with but don't know how to articulate. Okay. This is because you stopped trusting yourself a long time ago and you struggle with self trust now. And I'm going to tell you why that is. Okay. First of all, if you don't know who I am, my name is Fantanish Atomsa. I am a holistic wellness practitioner. So I'm a registered massage therapist, also a certified Reiki practitioner, birth doula, and oh my gosh, comedic yoga teacher. I focus a lot on body based healing. I'm also a mom of three. So, the reason why I focus a lot on body based healing is because I am someone who has experienced complex childhood trauma. I experienced sexual abuse at a very young age, and this shaped me in a lot of ways. I was in survival mode for a long time. I stopped trusting people. I didn't trust the adults in my life. I didn't trust, teachers. I didn't trust, anybody. And so I just felt like I had to do everything for myself on my own, right? And this is a trauma response, right? High performing, high achieving can be a trauma response because I don't trust anybody else to make me feel safe or help me feel stable. So I'm going to do it myself, right? And so I was extremely stressed. I was young mom, first child got pregnant at 18, had him at 19. Um, went through some things there, and I, had two other children. Didn't end up working out with their father as well, and I just went from stressed to burnt out to autopilot. Okay. So I was just showing up, I was functioning on the outside, but inside I was completely dysregulated, disconnected. I did not trust myself at all, at all, at all. And it wasn't until I began doing the deep work, right? Getting out of my head, stop intellectualizing everything. I was great at reading the self-help books. I was great at taking the new courses, right? My long list of titles speak for themselves. Like I'm always learning, always acquiring information, just like a lot of the women that I work with, like brilliant women, high achieving women, like they're going for, bachelor's, master's, PhDs and beyond courses, certifications, building businesses, raising families is sometimes, as single moms or even in partnerships, but we're just completely disconnected, right? And so it wasn't until I went deeper, stopped intellectualizing, and started going back into ancient principles. So a lot of what I do is blend ancient wisdom with modern science. So I have health science education. I've taken a lot of health science courses, body-based courses, particularly around neuroanatomy, pathophysiology, understanding how cells work, how body systems work, and it is the exact same thing as energetics. We're saying the same thing, but in different words, different language, same message. So what I do is I blend that ancient wisdom. I've studied about ancient Kemet, ancient Kush, through the Metu Neter, through divine feminine principles, and through my ancient Kemetic yoga teacher training. And I've taken all that information and I've applied it to my practice and to my own personal healing. And this is when the change began for me, right? This is when I stopped just thinking about it and started embodying it. So the three pillars that I use to help my women, which I've helped over 1,000 women now with overcoming stress and burnout, healing body pain naturally, and rebuilding self trust. The three pillars that I use is number one, nervous system regulation. So, understanding what we're actually saying to ourselves, how we're talking to ourselves, and creating safety, right? Because for many of us, safety is dysregulation. Safety is unhealthy relationships. Safety is not taking care of our bodies or self abandonment or self sabotage. That's safety because that's what we're used to. That's what we're familiar with. And our nervous system's only job is to keep us safe. And so through the nervous system regulation, what I do is I create or I support women in expanding their capacity to feel safe. How do we do micro exposures? How do we begin feeling safe with receiving, with sitting back, with falling back into our femininity a little bit, with trying new things, right? Um, with taking on new things, but not in a way to create more burden for us, but to expose ourselves to new ways of living. Like we don't have to be stressed. We don't have to be burnt out. It's okay for you to take an evening bath. It's okay for you to rest for 5 minutes in the middle of the day, right? These micro exposures so that we can come out of this survival mode. Okay. So the first thing is nervous system regulation. Second thing I do to help my women is through somatic healing. So body based healing. A lot of women that I see are coming in, they're showing up with pain, chronic pain, and they're thinking that it's normal. Right? They're just so used to this. We haven't known anything different. So we're used to walking around with tight, clenched jaw, right? We're used to walking around with migraines and headaches. We're used to walking around with elevated shoulders, tight traps, back pain, hip pain, digestive issues, swelling, inflammation, and we think that this is normal. So with my RMT background, so massage therapy background, with my doula practice as well, I help the women heal that physical pain, but with the Reiki practice, with the Kemetic yoga practice, the energetics behind it, and studying these ancient spiritual practices, I'm getting deep into the trauma. So I also have a trauma care certification. So everything that I do is trauma informed. I understand that all of us have experienced trauma, and it can range in terms of spectrum, right? Some of us, it could be childhood, abuse, and for some of us it's parents splitting up, and for some of us it could be a car accident or a traumatic natural disaster, right? There's different types of trauma, and the thing is, the mind can forget, but the body remembers. Okay, the body remembers, and so we start to present with different pain patterns in our body, right? There's certain things that continue to show up. There's certain burnout patterns that show up. There's certain survival patterns that show up, and your body will always tell you. Like I can tell when a when a woman walks in if she's not speaking her truth, right? If she's holding things back, right? Is she clenching? Is she grinding her teeth? I can tell by the posture. What is she? How much stress is she holding? Right? Your posture starts to change when you're under a lot of stress for a prolonged period of time. I can tell by the way you walk. Right, your hips could be unbalanced, your feet can be imbalanced, right? You have certain muscular and skeletal imbalances in your body. What's being held? Where is there the lack of stability? Where is lack of safety? Right? So the body presents in one way, but because of my understanding of trauma and from experience, but also through training, I see, and through treating my women, I see what is showing up in your body, what's actually buried underneath. So we work through that somatic, that body based healing, to get this pain, this stagnation, this locked, unprocessed emotions, unprocessed trauma, get that out of the body so you can actually learn to live pain free. Because, baby girl, you do not need to be walking around here with a headache every day. You do not need to be walking around here with a headache every day. You do not need to be walking around here clenching your jaw every day. You don't need to be walking around here with your shoulders up to your ears every day. Okay, there's other ways that you can live. Okay. And so that nervous system regulation is the first pillar, that body based healing, right? That processing trauma and processing pain. That's number two. And then number three, which we are going to get into today, is like rebuilding self trust, right? And unfortunately, I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but unfortunately, women have struggled with lack of self trust for generations, right? Lifetimes, and your mama and your grandmama and beyond, right? Most of us have experienced stress, right, which is different than burnout. If you don't know, stress is actually healthy and it's normal to experience stress, right? It's just stress in simplest form is when the load exceeds the capacity. And so when we want to expand, whether it's I want to build muscle, your muscles need to expand, or I want to build my life, right? I want to have experience this new job or this new opportunity or this new love, right? That requires expansion. So we're going to feel stressed. It's something new, right? Stress is actually normal. Um, but when it gets to that stage of burnout, that's when it becomes a challenge for us. So that's when we experience exhaustion. That's the physical, mental, spiritual exhaustion. So most of us are so, so exhausted, so burnt out, and not even aware that we're burnt out. I've lived with this for probably a decade. Like I was burnt out for a decade. Imagine a decade, right? And so disconnected from myself that I was in autopilot. I was in survival mode. So I showing up every day, waking up, taking care of the kids, going to my business, my clinic at the time, or my workplace, wherever I was at the time, and just putting on a smiling face. We look so good on the outside, but inside we're so dysregulated. We're overthinking. We're on autopilot, right? We're just going through the motions, going through the functions. So we are not experiencing joy. We're not experiencing pleasure. We're not really present in the moment, right? We're just there, existing, and we're super dysregulated. We're super we're super disconnected, and that becomes normal. Most of us, we're not even aware that we're in that state. And so if you are in that state right now, there's no shame in it. Okay, there's literally no shame, right? If you want deeper support, I do have the sanctuary where I'm continuing to help women move beyond survival mode, right? Move beyond stress and burnout, and actually be able to live a life of joy, live a life of pleasure, heal that body pain and rebuild that self trust, right? And so that self trust piece comes with that's our third pillar, right? Nervous system regulation, somatic healing, and the third thing is self trust. And we do this through divine feminine energy. And don't, don't hang up on me now. Okay. Because I know that this is a buzzword. This is something that people use often. And it's something that I hesitate to even say because I don't want people to just be like, oh, this is woo woo, and then just dismiss it instantly. Uh, I'm here to tell you that divine feminine energy and divine feminine principles are absolute. Um, they're true, right? This is based on history, ancient wisdom. Everything that I speak about around ancient wisdom is based off of ancient Kemet, so modern day Egypt, ancient Nubia, which is modern day Sudan, and ancient Kush. So which is modern day Ethiopia, which is originally where I'm from, Ethiopia. So all of the things that our ancestors have taught us around how to live, how to be in harmony with each other, how to be in harmony with nature, we still have those teachings today, and there are feminine principles that we have unfortunately been um, it's been withheld from us, right? We know that the patriarchy exists. We know that colonialism, exists, and through these systems that have been put in place, our divine feminine has been stripped from us. However, I'm going to get into it. Women are the center of so much. We're the center of politics, center of media, center of um, i- um, movements, right? Revolutions, but we are also the center of divinity. And because of different things, we have uh, learned or been taught that women are second, right? Women are beneath, women are below. And so what happens with that? That's when we lose our self-trust. So I'm going to get into some of that here um, in a second. Sorry, just pause, bear with me for a second. All right. Okay, we're back. So um speaking of divine feminine energy, we're going to go into why we have lost our self trust as women. Okay, you don't trust yourself. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't trust ourselves because we do not know who we are. We've never been taught who we are. We have never been appreciated for who we are, respected for who we are, or allowed to be who we are. Okay. So when we don't know who we are and we start looking externally for validation, for answers, for wisdom, for how to live our life, or how to take care of our bodies, that that causes self-trust, a lack of self-trust. And there's three reasons why this happens. And so the first one is through conditioning, right? So as women in society, through societal expectations, through religious expectations, through community expectations, through family expectations, cultural expectations, we have been conditioned to perform, to behave a certain way, to show up in a certain way. What do I mean by that? It's, you must dress a certain way. If you dress too much, it's too revealing. If you dress too modest, you're oppressed, right? If you speak too much, you're rowdy, or you don't know your place. And if you don't speak enough, you're too shy, you're lacking confidence, right? Other things is if you become a mom, your life is over. If you don't become a mom, you've wasted your whole life, right? If you work too hard, you're too masculine. And if you don't work enough, like, you're lazy, right? And we're taught to disregard how we feel. We're taught to disregard our own intuition. So sometimes we might feel like something feels unsafe, or we feel like, energies have switched or behaviors have switched. And what are we told? We're told that we're too sensitive, right? We're told that we're overreacting. We're told that, it's all in our heads. So all of these messages over a continued period of time has taught us not to trust ourselves. So rather than going internally, rather than asking ourselves and honoring ourselves for how we feel and the truth of what's coming up, we're just taught to seek externally, right? We're seeking advice from other people. Like, what do you think I should do? Or, like, am I doing too much? Like, and there's nothing wrong with seeking guidance and seeking mentorship, particularly from trusted leaders. But our intuition is our gift. And if we have been conditioned to feel like we're overreacting, or we're doing too much, or, like we're saying too much, or yeah, that our emotions just, they don't matter, then over time we lose that self-trust, right? And that is a result of conditioning, right? Even as a very simple example, when we're menstruating, I use this example all the time. When we're menstruating, like, we're bleeding, we're cramping. Intuitively, any person who's bleeding or cramping should be home. They should not be out in the world, right? But what are we told to do? We're told to pop a painkiller and get out there and perform. Like, go to work, go to school, do your thing, right? The world doesn't stop. And I know there are cultures, right? And I come from one of those cultures where if a woman is menstruating, she's just expected to rest at home, right? So it's been very much of a culture shock for women who've come to this country where that's not the practice, right? And so we've just again been taught to dissociate from what our body's telling us, right? Dissociate from pain, right? Dissociate um from feeling safe, right? Like we're just we're told to yeah, to silence ourselves if we're speaking too much or speak up if we're silencing ourselves. Like it's just like no matter what, you cannot do the right thing. And so when that happens naturally, we're not going to trust ourselves anymore. We're going to look externally for the answers and um, for the next step. Like, what do we do next, right? So, number one is the conditioning. So, again, this is not your fault. Like, it's not that you don't trust yourself because you just woke up one day and said, "Yeah, like I don't know anything." And all my life experience doesn't matter, and I don't know if I'm making the right decision, and why can't I make a decision, and why do I have this lack of clarity? Why can't I have a clear vision? This is like I want you to release that shame right now because this is not something that you created. This is a symptom of conditioning, right? Like when we are taught not to trust ourselves, that's going to be the natural byproduct, right? um, and we need to be very mindful of how we talk to ourselves, right? Rather than saying like I don't know what the next step is, right? And we talk about this inside the sanctuary as part of expanding and feeling safe within our nervous system. Rather than saying like I don't know what the next step is, really really sit with it. Like if you need to leave that job, if you need to get a health condition checked out, if you need to drop a person, a friend, a partner, whatever the case is. you know you know right? The question is not like should I or shouldn't I. It's what is the next steps that I can take that my nervous system can handle, right? Maybe I can't quit today, but what is the timeline that I can put in place where I feel safe enough to do this? And maybe I can't leave the relationship today, right? Or maybe I can't go out and start dating today, but what is the timeline and what are the like micro exposures that I can do within that time frame to allow this to happen, right? Because you feel safe, your nervous system feels safer trusting what other people say, right? So you might be feeling like I need to do this, but other people are telling you to do something else, and so you feel safer listening to them in the moment, but then you're just so disconnected and dysregulated because this was never what you wanted, right? And your body knows. That's why you're showing up with signs of burnout and symptoms of stress and burnout because your body knows, right? But your mind is disconnected from the body, right? So conditioning is that first reason for why we lose that self-trust as women. Okay. Number two is because we end up on autopilot. And so this is something that I talked about. I have another video on YouTube. You can go watch that. It's titled From Passenger to Pilot. But again, when you've been in a state of um, just disconnection from yourself, right? When you're used to this conditioning, when you're used to other people telling you what to do, when you're used to having to just show up despite how you feel, despite, the truth of how your body feels, how your emotion feels, you end up in autopilot. So you are just in this state of performance, right? You are just in this state of disconnection, and you're just there, you're just existing. And so when you're just existing, again, you don't know who you really are, you don't know what you really want, right? You're just showing up each day doing the exact same thing, um not maybe not happy, maybe not unhappy, but not feeling anything. Like you're there physically but you're not actually present. And so autopilot causes a lot of actual health issues because again, you're just showing up, but you're showing up with pain in your body. You're showing up with overthinking. You're showing up with upset stomach, and you become so used to this. You become used to just showing up day in and day out, but you're disconnected from yourself. And so when you're showing up and you're performing without actually connecting with how you feel, that's going to cause you a lot of issues, right? And yes, we're talking about the physical health issues, but you're going to seep that out into other areas of your life. So maybe you're not having emotional outbursts at work, right? Maybe you're not having it in your business, but you're going to have these outbursts with your loved ones. You're going to have this outburst with your children, right? You're going to have this outburst with your family, your partner, because you're going to be so dysregulated in every other area, so disconnected in every other area that you are going to begin having these emotional outbursts in the wrong areas, right? And burnout patterns, they show up in multiple ways. Like you can be burnt out at work, and so you're exhausted at work, and then you're going to show up exhausted in your relationship. You're going to show up exhausted with your kids. You're going to show up exhausted with your friends. You're going to start, isolating. You're going to start, creating more disconnection within yourself because you just don't know how to feel anymore. You've just kind of come out of what it's like to actually tune in and connect with what your needs are, right? Um, and your body gets into these holding patterns and autopilot. Like I said, the physical pain shows up. And in the masterclass today, if you're interested, you can get into the sanctuary 7 days free, and you can rewatch the masterclass. But after this call, I'm going deeper inside the sanctuary where we're going to explore these holding patterns in our body. Like, how is burnout showing up, right? What does it look like, or what is actually happening when I have these chronic headaches on an emotional level, on a trauma informed level? What is happening energetically? What's happening with me spiritually? What's happening with me emotionally when I have headaches every day? What's happening to me when I feel like, my throat is closing up all the time? What is the emotion behind that? What needs to be released, right? And what about my shoulders? Again, what about my heart, that chest pain that's showing up, that anxiety that's creeping up, right? When you're feeling that, you're feeling upset stomach, indigestion, issues with your bowel movements, right? Hip pain, low back pain, all of those things, we're going to decode all of that on a trauma level, on a cellular, emotional, spiritual level. So we're going to do a full body map, and body decoding in the masterclass tonight. So if you want to join, the link is going to be in the description for this episode, but also in my bio. So you can go to the bio, grab that. You'll also be able to, you'll join 7 days free. You get to participate in a 5 day challenge, which is 5 days to feel safe in your body. So you can go in, you can do the 5 days to feel safe in your body, and then you can rewatch the master class around how to decode your body pain. Okay. So if you're interested in learning what that is and actually taking the time to get out of your head, stop intellectualizing. This is a great opportunity. Like, YouTube is a great opportunity, but inside the sanctuary, we're actually practicing embodiment. So, what does it mean to move past just watching, just learning? How do we actually apply these practices into our body, into our lives? Because that's the true key to healing, right? And especially for women who are in our masculine more often, we're performing, we're out here, we're working, we're hustling, we're grinding, we're achieving goals. These are all great, and I will never be the one to take away your achievements and your accolades, right? And your ability to learn and acquire wisdom and acquire knowledge. But for us to truly heal, women in particular, we have to embody these things. It has to be felt. It can't just be understood. It has to be felt. Okay. Now there's a saying, what's felt does not need to be understood, or what's understood does not need to be felt, or maybe it's what's understood doesn't need to be explained. But anyway, You get what I'm saying? So, yes. So, number one was the conditioning. That's the number one reason why you don't trust yourself. Again, no fault of your own. Autopilot and performing. That's number two for why you don't trust yourself because you don't even again you don't even know what you're feeling, right? You're just showing up day to day. You're just doing the same thing over and over, but you don't even know how to answer your own questions about what do I want to eat today, right? Like you look at a menu like what do I choose? I don't know, right? And honestly, that's one of the number one practices I give to my women who feel like they don't have self trust anymore is go to a restaurant, look at the menu and choose something like right away. Don't second guess it. Just go with your first gut. Don't think about how many calories is this, right? That's another way to keep us controlled and conditioned. Don't think about how much does this cost or any other reason, right? Like just, think of something, I'm not going to be unrealistic. Think of something that's, in your budget, but it's okay. It's okay to splurge every once in a while, but it's about that decision. That's the most important thing. I want you to trust yourself, make the decision to be like, this is what I choose, this is what I'm gonna eat, and be okay with that. Just be like, it's safe for me to make this decision. Okay, I've made the right decision. Don't second guess yourself. Just enjoy that meal and grab some dessert while you're at it. Okay. So number 3, the third thing for why we don't trust ourselves is because we don't actually know who we are. I promise you, if you only knew your power, you would understand the power of your divinity and you would trust yourself immensely, right? You wouldn't even second guess, you wouldn't look anywhere else beyond yourself if you truly knew who you were. And unfortunately, this is the information that we have not been exposed to. This is the information that has been taken out of religion. A lot of our religions, this is the information that's been taken out of a lot of our history books, a lot of academic, like school teaching, right? This has been taken out of language, right? How we talk to each other, how we talk about things, how we talk about principles, how we talk about like nature and our environments, right? The divine feminine is life, right? It's so expansive. Like the divine feminine, this is God. God is not just masculine. God is not just a condemning, um, you know, yeah, judgmental, ready to throw you to hell, like ready to fight wars and punish you for your sins, and um, God is not that person. God has many different principles and aspects that are masculine and feminine. And when we are told that God is this, one gender that is, in the sky and looking down on us and judging us all the time, we lose touch with the power of femininity. But the divine is both masculine and feminine. And the divine is not something that is external and just out there, right? We don't need to seek religion. We don't need to seek text. We don't need to seek outside of ourselves to find the divine. The divine is within us, and the divine is so beautiful and so powerful and feminine. Nurturing is a divine feminine principle, and that is powerful. It is powerful to be nurturing, right? You know how many people need healing in the world? You know how many people need a safe, soft childhood? You know how many people need to be taken care of, right? And this is not about overpouring yourself, but this is, boundaries is also feminine, right? Love is powerful, beauty is powerful. Um, Creativity is powerful. Joy is part of divinity, right? It's about pleasure. Pleasure is also part of divinity. And so when we start to learn and understand that the divine feminine is something that is very spiritual, and it's not just okay, but it's necessary for us as women to experience pleasure, to experience enjoy, to take care of our bodies, look good, dress good, take care of our hair, adorn ourselves, right? We're taught to have so much shame around this. We're taught that this is attention seeking, that this is for vanity, right? That we think that we're better than, or who does she think she is showing up here like that, or she's overdressed, or what? No, honey, embodied in my divine feminine. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I am, and I know exactly what I come from and what is inside of me. And if you knew that too, you would never dare show up as anything less than that. Not in the workplace, not in community, not with your family, not even in the grocery store. Like every time you go outside, you are a representation of the divine. And when you understand that that is such a beautiful, powerful thing, no way would you ever not trust yourself. You would spend more time slowing down and actually tuning in and listening to your own inner wisdom, right? And again, back to the autopilot point, society again has done such a good job at keeping us so busy and so distracted. We're running from one thing to the next. We're, doing a 9 to 5, then a 5 to 9, and you got to do the drop offs, and you got to do the after school care. And a lot of times we're doing this without community or support or a village, and we're just kept so busy and distracted. Like, where's that time? Where's that time for rest? Where's that time for stillness without more distractions? Not stillness and scrolling, not stillness and watching, Netflix, right? No shade to Netflix. I love doing this from time to time, but where is that opportunity for you to tune in and let go of those distractions and actually listen to what your inner wisdom is saying, right? And I'm going to do a whole other live and class on this around uh, our inner voice, right? Intuition versus ego. Like what is our true frequency? You're gonna find out what your frequency is when you slow down, when you actually listen. Okay. Um, but again, most women do not understand that they are divine, right? That the divine is also feminine, right? Because when we say that the divine is um, masculine, it automatically creates a separation between divinity and women, right? And so we become a sub, right? And it's the same with saying that the divine is, European and male, right? What about Black people or other, ethnicities or other color folks? Like, what about God for them? What about God for us? If you don't see yourself represented in divinity, you're there's already a separation there, right? But that is not the truth. That is conditioning. Again, if we go back to ancient Kemet, if we go back to ancient Kush, ancient Nubia, I'm talking thousands and thousands of years ago, ancient civilizations, who do we see exalted in the pyramids, exalted in the temples, exalted in the artwork? Is it just males? It's not just males, it's men and women, right? And it's women not covered. You seeing everything. You seeing breasts. You seeing um, I don't want to say this on YouTube because I might get canceled, but we're seeing our other sacred parts, right? We're seeing our sacred lotuses, right? Even our fupas. Like when did we start like feeling shame with fupas? Like when we start actually thinking about how much we've been conditioned and how much um unlearning that needs to be done, it's a lot, ladies. It's a lot, but it's not impossible, right? We just have to begin questioning where our thoughts come from. And we need to begin not learning the truth, but remembering the truth. Because these are things that, again, our ancestors have passed on to us for a very long time, right? Ancient civilizations, women and females were equal to the males, right? And it's a hard concept to comprehend, right? It is really hard to comprehend. Um, even with religion, right? A lot of times we only see like male priests or male pastors or male preachers, and if a woman is up there, sometimes there's just a disconnect or a different level of respect, right? Like, we start criticizing, what is she wearing? Is she doing too much? Like, this is only started happening in the last a few hundred years, right? And when we talk about the history of the world, that's very recent. So we're not that far gone from the truth and that far gone from the ancient wisdom, the ancestral wisdom, and the teachings that we have. And so inside the sanctuary, we do have a decode your body pain program, which is so much fun. You do this self assessment on yourself, and then you start doing the practices to help release some of that pain beyond just a superficial level. And then we have our divine feminine energy program where I have master classes in there where I teach you how to reconnect with that wisdom. I teach you the ancient teachings to help remind you of the truth of who you are so that you don't have to question that anymore, so that you can rebuild that self-trust and be like, yeah, like this is me. This is the power that I always knew that I had. And we're using our power for good, not evil, but just remembering that that is the truth of you and you have all the answers that you need inside of you because the divine is inside of you. The divine is you, right? And so I understand that, ego comes in and conditioning comes in and we start getting confused, but inside the divine feminine energy program, I help us master that reconnection. Okay, so I teach us the actual ancient history behind the divine feminine and how that can be applied into our own lives today and how that's actually going to help heal us. I go over things like the sacred clock, like when should we be waking up? When should we be moving? When should we be focused on our creative power, our creativity? When do we need to focus on body care? Right? What time of day? And that's an essential practice. It's sacred and it's meditative, right? Um, even in the Bible, like Queen Esther, right before she went to get married, she spent 12 months in preparation. Right, this is a holy principle. This is a sacred principle where she had the best perfumes, the best oils, and this is more than just showing up to get married, but this is a very sacred practice for her to become embodied in her divine feminine energy, right? To heal herself through body care, through hair care, through adornment, through dressing good, through taking the bath, through eating well, through rest, right? This is all a spiritual practice. And when we don't know who we are and when we don't know that that is um, the truth of who we are, then we won't trust ourselves. But again, inside the sanctuary, I do go through these teachings in depth, and you do have a divine feminine energy book that you can read and work through as part of your own self healing practice. And then we talk about it. We talk about it in the master classes. We talk about it in our coaching calls, and there's plenty of videos there for you to go through your own, self-pacing yourself, right? We're not jumping right in and dysregulating ourselves even more, but, taking it in digestible chunks so you can apply it in your own life. So again, the three reasons why you're not trusting yourself has nothing to do with you. But the first one is conditioning. The second one is that you're on autopilot. And the third one is that you don't know the truth of who you are, which is a divine feminine being, right? And so when we begin to know the truth of who we are, we begin to rebuild that self trust. And so if you're curious to learn more about this, if you're curious to dive deeper into these ancestral practices and go beyond that and decode the body pain and heal your body pain and heal your trauma and emotions naturally, come on into the sanctuary. I would love to welcome you in there. Start for 7 days free. I'll send you the 5 days to feel safe in your body journey, that many challenges you can do. And I want you to DM me when you come in and just say hello. Like just say hello, just something simple, and I would be more than honored to set you up on your right path. Okay? Everything in there is simplified. We have our foundations healing, then we go into deeper healing, then we go into the divine feminine. We talk about that nervous system regulating, right? The three pillars: nervous system regulating, somatic healing, so healing the trauma and the pain through the body, and then reconnecting with the divine feminine, because that's what we need as women. Okay, so my link is in the description, also in my bio, and thank you for watching. And I look forward to chatting with y'all soon. Take care. Ciao.